Okay, it is 4 o'clock, and I will call the Salina City Commission. Excuse me a second, gentlemen. Sorry, thanks. Now, I will call the April 3rd Salina City Commission meeting to order. I will look to staff to ask for confirmation that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. We will have roll call.
Mayor Hoppick.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Linkowitz.
Here.
Commissioner Longbine.
Here.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
Thank you. Will those who are able please stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have no awards or proclamations today, no public hearings. That will lead us to the consent agenda.
Item 5.1, approve the minutes of the regular meeting on March 27, 2023. 5.2, approve the minutes of the special meeting on March 29, 2023.
Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, I will accept a motion to approve.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items 5.1 and 5.2. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. That will lead us into administration.
Item 6.1, approve ordinance number 23-11147 on second reading, unconditionally approving the issuance of general obligation bonds by the Salina Airport Authority for the purpose of financing the cost of certain capital improvements located at the Salina Regional Airport and Airport Industrial Center.
Ordinance number 23-11147 was passed on first reading on March 27th, 2023. Since that time, no comments have been received. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments since last meeting on this? Is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 23-11147 on second reading. Second.
We have a first and a second to approve ordinance number 23-11147 on second reading, unconditionally approving the issuance of general obligation bonds by the Salina Airport Authority for the purpose of financing the cost of certain capital improvements located at Salina Regional Airport and Airport Industrial Center. With that, we will have a roll call.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Linkowitz.
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. That also passes 5-0. That will take us to item number 6.2.
Item 6.2, approve ordinance number 23-11148 on second reading, establishing a turf maintenance and replacement fund and authorize staff to make a $75,000 contribution to the fund in 2023.
Ordinance number 23-11148 was passed on first reading on March 27th, 2023. Since that time, no comments have been received. Do we have any questions or comments from the commission?
One question. I noticed in reading the actual ordinance, it does not specify the dollar amount. Is this two separate actions? One to establish the fund?
Yeah, the ordinance is, right. The ordinance is to establish the fund, then annually we'll have to make allocations to it.
So is the allocation a separate action?
Well, the allocation is actually a result of the agreement that we have with Baseball Enterprises and matching funds, so that's more informational for...
So we've already actually
Yes.
allocated the money. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 23-11148 on second reading.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 23-11148 on second reading, establish a turf fund maintenance and replacement fund. We will do roll call, please.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Linkowitz.
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick.
Aye. That passes 5-0. That will lead us to item 6.4.
It's 6.3. Item 6.3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Approve ordinance number 23-11149 on second reading, amending the PC2 district boundary and approve an amended site development plan for the former Town and Country Veterinary Clinic property at 1001 Schippel Drive.
Ordinance number 23-11149 was passed on first reading on March 27th, 2023. Since that time, no comments have been received. Any questions or comments from the commission? Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, if not, I will bring that back.
Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 23-11149 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 23-11149 on second reading, repealing and replacing ordinance number 22-11139, amending the PC2 district boundary and approving an amended site development plan for the former Town and Country Veterinary Clinic property located at 1001 Schippel Drive. With that, we will have roll call.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Linkowitz?
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
Mayor Hoppick?
Aye. That passes 5-0. Now we'll move on to item 6.4.
Item 6.4, award the bid for Smoky Hill River Greenway Trail Construction Phase 1 in the amount of $270,889.19 with a 5% construction contingency for a total project authorization not to exceed $284,433.65 and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Ponton Construction, Inc. upon fulfillment of all prerequisites under the bid documents.
Mr. Stack.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Glad to be here with this project. It's been a long time in the works, and it's kind of a partnership with Friends of the River that we've started, and we're really going after it now, finally getting a trail built. So it started years ago with a long-term plan for the river project, and then we got some funding to do a design portion through this section here that you'll see. Here's the YMCA, Kenwood Cove, Ohio Street over here. There was already a kind of a trail from Ohio over to Bill Burke on this side that goes over to Bill Burke, kind of along the river there. There was kind of an old trail that the Y had in that area as well, kind of in this area all the way around. Pretty overgrown and tough to maintain. So we're excited now that we get to possibly build a concrete trail with a contractor here who's reputable. We've cleared the trees out already. We did that a few weeks ago with the Salina Tree project that's got phase 1 and 2 in this area, and they've already actually cleared the trees out. It took them a week. So it's pretty neat to see big equipment and see what they can do when they're efficient and get after it on that. So we're if you go back there today, you can actually walk back there, and it's a nice route along the river, basically. So I guess with all the background on this, we've got so many staff reports over the last 3 years with this. So I've attached some of them. If you have questions, I can sure talk about it. But Friends of the River has partnered with us for a public-private partnership to donate some of the help with the cost of this project. So we originally had an agreement that talked about the funding for this, and $240,000 was our city portion, and then they were going to contribute about $208,000. And basically, we had such good bids that they don't have to give us quite that much at this point. So we really did have good bids on this project. I was pretty excited about it. Ponton Construction's the low bidder, and they came in at $100,000, almost less than engineer's estimate, and TNR Construction, and we had one more bid that was a little higher than that as well. So I was concerned with that bid. I thought, oh man, that's a lot of work for $270,000. Can they do it for that? So I talked to Archie or the Ponton Construction, and he didn't seem to have any problem with it. He's got good subs, and one of the subs is the sub that's actually doing the tree project right now. So they're very familiar with the project. This is a good spot for them. They're very good at doing dirt work and demo work in areas where there's not a lot of risk. So we do like that part. They're not near any buildings. They're not they're not middle of city streets. But they're good at this area. So I feel like they can do it for that, and it's a good bid. And Archie's a reputable contractor, has not done a lot of work for the city on our side. They do typically a lot of building work and done a lot of work for the city on the building services side, but just not as much on our side. So we're not worried about them at this point because they do have two really good subs. The concrete sub is a good one as well. We've worked with him a lot. So I guess this is just, the counting is all here. I feel like we've got a good bid. And we do have the right-of-way thus far to get around the Y here, like I talked about. This is the city park through here. And we've gotten this property here, and this is close, this property here. If we don't get it by the time this happens, we'll have to just wait on that piece. I did get contacted today by this property, and then I've also talked with the other two properties. So I'm really close on all of it, but at least we're getting this phase done instead of waiting till we get it all. It's just we feel like it's better to take advantage of this project where we're at, and then hopefully come back to you later this year with the second phase of this. So that is where we're at on that. So I'll stand for questions. And Friends of the River is here today as well.
Okay, I'll start to my right. Any questions?
No questions, just happy to see the work getting done, and I think it'll be great when it's completed.
Finally, yes, thank you.
So the phase 2 is in contingent of negotiating with the property owners,
Correct.
so that'll be the next step.
Yep.
Okay, phase 3, will it just follow the river on past the Y?
That's a good question. There's a lot of the river project is along, 7 miles of river, so this is kind of the start of how it's going to look. The next phase 3 it's quite a few options. We could go east with the raise federal grant project that we got will help us with the bridges and then some more trails along the river. So exactly which phase will be next is
Well,
a
that was
question.
what I wondered, if it was just going to follow the trail or jump around.
It'll probably jump around with the bridges, so we'll have to, but we're trying to get this one started, then we'll work on the next ones. And it seems like, Friends of the River has been instrumental in helping us get funding depending on who's got interest where. So this one happened to be this area. We don't know if that'll happen as we move along over the next few years, what areas they'll be interested in, but there's always the hope of future agreements and partnerships with Friends of the River.
Not only have they been instrumental, they've been patient.
Yeah, they've been very patient. We do want to thank them for their patience because we're finally there.
Okay. Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
I do not have COVID, but I have a cold, sorry. This is Jane Anderson from the Friends of the River Foundation, 6360 East Iron. We'd just like to say thank you for hanging in there also. This is a big step for the river renewal. People, I've already had comments on Facebook, they're so excited to see something happening. So I think we'll have a lot of positive output from this trail being started. And it does jump around, I know, from seeing the raise grant timeline. It's not going to go in order. It will move around a little. It will start with bridges, actually, and the trail's kind of in the middle. So this piece of trail will be your first view, but you won't see the next part for a few years, if I've understood that correctly. But the bridges will start out by Lakewood and move backwards. So that's how that works. Is that what you're asking, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, so it will move to bridges next, and then the trails will be toward the middle or end because they can't. This one was designed to be built before so it can be designed and they can dredge it and it won't be injured. But some of them it's right tangled in the middle, so they can't be built right at the same time. So thank you so much. We're really excited about this happening.
When do we expect work on the bridges to begin? Do we have any idea?
If I understood it right, it's 2024.
24, yeah.
They're in the middle. Can I talk about this? Are you okay with that? Okay, I've been talking to
Fine
Martha.
by me. You
Are
know more than I
okay
do
with
at this point.
Oh, I do?
Go ahead.
Okay, I've been talking to Martha. Is she here? No. If I understood this correctly, which I could be wrong, they're still working on getting their contract signed with the feds for the raise grant, and I think it's going to go to the state to be looked over, and then it moves on. And I've looked at that timeline so many times now, they think there'll be 2 bridges built in '24, and there'll be 2 bridges every year after that until they're finished. So we've really crossed over into construction. Yay. Well, let's hope. I'm always a little cautious now. I've learned my lesson about speaking too soon. But I do think they have to move on this because there's a very short timeline for this money to be spent for that much money. So
Okay,
anyway.
thank you, Dean.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I did have another question for Mr. Stack. The construction timeline on this project?
Yes,
Is there
good
a-
question. This project should be done by fall, basically September, end of October. I think it'll happen faster than that, but we gave them time to see what the bidding climate.
You don't have any dates in the packet here?
I don't.
or
No, I
there's-
didn't say. We did not put that in there. I should.
Are they
Yeah, we have a
expected to
deadline,
start?
deadline of this fall, and so that gave them plenty of time to do the project. I actually think this contractor will start really soon, whereas the other 2 contractors I talked to were not interested in work now because they're booked out till fall. Well, we could probably fit it in the fall. So TNR and Smoky Hill were more end of timeline, but these guys they're already in there and they're ready to start. So I think it'll happen sooner than that, but it doesn't have to be done until end of September, early October. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public?
Ken Ritz from Salina. I'm curious on the bridges, how far along is the design, especially of the Iron Avenue Bridge, which was a mess from the beginning. It's just culverts, it's not a true bridge. Is that, has that been decided how that's going to be dealt with?
Yeah, my understanding is I think we got to about 30% design level to have enough information for the RAISE grant and budgeting purposes. Now that we have the RAISE grant funding, we're working out the design details.
One of the reasons I was curious, tearing that existing bridge out and starting over is really going to be expensive. And I've known the fellow, he was at Wilson and Company.
Mayor, that's kind of off the topic. Maybe Mr. Ritz and
yeah.
Jane could talk separately about this item.
Oh, well, I was just going to mention that the gentleman who, when he worked at Wilson and Company, headed up the original Smoky Hill River reclamation project, which was, what, 30, 40 years ago, something like that. And I've visited with him back and forth. He was most upset with how that Iron Avenue Bridge went in. In fact, he said that the engineer that designed that should have had his license taken out and burned. That it was, yeah, it was
I don't know
just
about
absurd.
that, but we are addressing the culvert and making it large enough for water flow. So again, thank you for your comments.
But anyway, his suggestion was that we leave that bridge alone, take the mill dam out, and then put a dam on the south side of Iron, and then have a water feature stepping down.
Yeah, well-
And if you did that, then the culverts would be adequate,
Well-
and it would save and would make a really nice feature right there off 4th Street.
Yep, I'm not an engineer, and I think you'll have to talk to Ms. Anderson
I'm
about
just-
that. We'll let her, yep.
Last
so-
I knew, no one was,
Yeah.
he was looking at that, and I thought, geez, this is neat.
Yep.
But anyway, I was just curious where
Yep.
that was, I guess.
They're working on it. That's
I guess
why
we'll
we got
find
the
out.
professional. We'll find out, yeah, so thank you. Okay, any other comments? Sorry, I'm the one that let us down that one, Carl. Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move we approve a motion awarding the bid for Smoky Hill Greenway Trail Construction Phase 1, project number 90037B, in the amount of $270,889.19, with a $13,544.46 construction contingency for a total project authorization not to exceed $284,433.65, and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Ponton Construction Incorporated upon the fulfillment of all prerequisites under the bid documents.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second awarding the bid for Smoky Hill River Greenway Trail Construction Phase 1, project number 90037B, in the amount of $270,889.19, with a $13,544.46 contingency, for a total project of $284,433.65, and authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Ponton Construction. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you very much. That will lead us to item 6.5.
Item 6.5, approve resolution number 23-8120, authorizing a 100% sales tax exemption on construction materials for Project Lee Lofts Phase 2.
Mr. Robinson.
Good evening. Mitch Robinson, Executive Director, Salina Community Economic Development. Well, we have another exciting project, one that you all started, your predecessor started in 2018. As you all aware, the Lee Lofts building was started in February 26, 2018. The commission approved $500,000 in assistance to help with the gap financing on this project. And the original Phase 1 started with 44 one-bedroom units, 5 two-bedroom units, 4 three-bedroom units. As we all know, it was a very successful project. They were able to get that filled in a relatively short period of time, and the company has been working on their Phase 2 plan. So earlier this year, representatives of Overland Park Group, Lee Lofts Partners 2 LLC, and one of the very positive things that I felt out of the project, it's the exact same group, the exact same people, the exact same financing. You know, they felt that strong in the project to come back in the same format. And we'll hear more about that here in a couple minutes. But this Phase 2 will have 40 one-bedroom units, 8 two-bedroom units, and 2 three-bedroom units. And then additionally, there's going to be a 9,000 square feet of potentially office or commercial space available on the first floor. So potentially restaurant, it could be a wide number of things. This will be finished out to what's called in the industry a white box configuration, basically where it's ready for the unit to be taken into whatever final use will be selected by potential tenants. This project's a little different. The company's asking for a sales tax exemption only, no property tax via the industrial revenue bonds, which is what I'm usually here to talk about. Working with bond attorney Sarah Steele with Gilmore & Bell, she outlined the difference on the proposal. There is no public hearing required when we're going through this, but we still have this information coming before you all. So the project, there will be a third phase, Phase 3, later with additional 30 units. Austin CAC with Lee Lofts came to our organization on March 2nd concerning their interest in the project and our requirement to help with industrial revenue bonds here in the community. And so March 15th, we had a Zoom call, went over the project, and then March 16th, he presented to the SC EDO board the project, and I'm going to have him come up now. He's got just a few slides that he's going to go over, and he'll be able to answer any questions, and I'll get back up here. Awesome.
Afternoon, everyone. I don't know, did we actually get the slides? Did it sent over?
And you go ahead and state your name again, just for the record.
Yeah, my name's Austin Cack. I'm actually the lead developer for Lee Lofts Phase 2, representing Overland Property Group. This is a joint venture development between Overland Property Group and Flint Hills Holding Group. And, you know, as Mitch had mentioned, this is the second phase of development at Lee Lofts out of a planned 3-phase. So I have a couple slides here that we can kind of buzz through, but mainly just wanted to give you guys a quick kind of overview of progress that's been made on the development and kind of where we're at today. So if we jump to the first slide, this kind of gives you an overview of the site plan. So, you know, the far north building was completed a couple years ago. We're really concerning that second portion right in the middle of the page. And as Mitch had mentioned, it's a mixed use facility. So there are going to be 50 residential units on the upper floors and almost 9,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor. And we tried to take as much as we could from the initial phase of development and kind of, you know, what worked well, what didn't work well, and build that into kind of phase 2. And so we think we have a really unique commercial space offering in the second phase of this development that is kind of wide open to a multitude of different tenant uses. So anything from restaurants to office space to retail, we wanted to leave it as open as possible to really give the community kind of the best in terms of the option selection that we can provide. And then I think if we go to the next slide, there might be, yeah. So this is just a sample floor plan of some of the units that we intend to provide. For the most part, you know, once you get above the second level, the unit layouts are kind of mirrored. You try to stack units as much as you can. So we didn't provide all of the layouts, but for the most part, it's pretty similar across the different floor layouts. So the reason that we approached the economic development organization is mainly kind of twofold. One, partnering with the community is something that's really important to us. And then kind of secondhand, you know, we've experienced a lot of challenges over the past 12 months from a myriad of different sources. You know, inflation has been a really tough challenge for us to deal with. Supply chain issues have been challenging for us to deal with. And ultimately, over the past 12 months from, you know, initial conceptual designs for the facility, and now we have a pretty substantial gap that we're trying to close, and we have means to do that through a couple different resources. But one of the more impactful things that we saw at this point was to attempt to proceed with a sales tax exemption for the development. So we threw up a quick sources and uses for the deal. We have, as Mitch mentioned, you know, the same local lender involved in the deal that was involved in part 1. Same equity investor is also lined up to move forward with this deal. Same state historic tax credit investor that's also lined up for this deal. So for the most part, everyone's proceeding with the same sort of mentality that we had on the first phase. Now we're just working to close the final gaps and really get moving forward with this. And so we have, you know, and I can go into further detail, but to keep it a little bit brief unless there's other questions, we have, you know, roughly $2.2 million of the gap in progress and on their way to being kind of completed. And that leaves kind of this last, you know, $500,000 to $600,000 portion that we're trying to get approval for. And that's where the sales tax exemption comes into place. So I think if we go to the next slide, you'll see here we have our conceptual construction budgets with some of the individual line items called out that give you a little bit more color as to what the expected expenses are for the project. And that's really where this ask comes from. So I think if we go maybe one more, 2 more, 3 more. There we go. Okay. The bottom right portion is what Mitch had alluded to earlier with kind of white boxing the commercial space. So this is a conceptual rendering from our architect, Jones Gillum Renz, that essentially shows what we anticipate the space looking like prior to a tenant being able to come in and utilize the space. So, you know, the roll doors on the side that open up into the courtyard, real open space in the middle. It's bifurcated into several different areas. So, you know, depending on the size of tenant that wants to come in, we can support 1 tenant, 2 tenants, 5 tenants, however many, you know, are willing to kind of come into the space. And I think to keep it relatively brief, we can probably pause there. And if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything about the development, kind of timelines, you know, design characteristics, anything I'm happy to elaborate on. So.
Start to my right.
No questions?
What is your timeline?
So we are pretty much teed up to start construction. We're in for permits, but we haven't been approved yet. Haven't picked them up yet. I think, you know, once the gaps are kind of solved and figured out, which we think we have, you know, a 30-day period to kind of sort out the majority of those, we're really ready to start moving. So I would say, you know, anywhere from 30 days to 60 days from today, assuming all approvals go through, we'd be ready to commence construction. And then we're on a roughly 12-month construction time frame. So, assuming May, that would put you in, May of 2024, and then we would be leasing up at that point. So, call it roughly, May to July of 2024 is when we would expect to start, providing units to tenants.
And expect to be having occupancy a year from May?
Ideally.
That's ambitious.
Yeah. Well, we have preliminary schedules that align with that time frame, so we're optimistic. We learned a lot from the first phase as well, which I think really helped out. And having the same general contractor, I think, is going to provide dividends for us as well. So, we're optimistic. We're going to push as hard as we can and really try and deliver this as
Who is the
best as
general
possible.
contractor?
Yes, we do have a waiting list. The contractor for phase one was MCP Build, or McPherson Contractors was the name. So.
Yeah, that's great, you already got a waiting list. I do have a question for city staff. When we do a sales tax exemption on a project like this, is that exempt them from sales tax regardless of where they source
Yes.
things?
Yep, they get a sales tax exemption certificate that they then can use where they make their purchases.
So if they get supplies out of Nebraska,
Yeah,
it's
they
gonna be
get a sales tax exemption as if the city would.
I always perceived it was just the local things in Salina, so, okay, thank you.
Just a general question. With all the tax credits and the sales tax exemption and, your development fee and the soft costs and the contingency, if you end up with not a gap, but let's just say there are no contingencies and there's a 1.5 million surplus, are any of those tax credits sort of rebated back proportionally based on the final bottom numbers, or does that just all go towards developer profit?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there are certain. So there are three layers of kind of sources on this deal. You have the federal low-income housing tax credit equity, and then you have state historic tax, or you have state and federal historic tax credit equity, and then you have kind of just everything else that we're lumping into one bucket. On the historic tax credit side, those are directly tied to expenses, qualified expenses that are qualified rehabilitation expenses. So those are directly tied to the construction costs for the development. So if we end up saving money on construction at the end of the day, those tax credits are reduced essentially at a one-to-one value based on what you're expending. The low-income housing tax credits typically are not rebated back if you spend less. However, we're working with the state right now. We're also pursuing a supplemental credit request from the state. And I'm assuming, I don't know the details on this because it hasn't been approved yet, but I'm assuming there will be a situation where if those are over-credited, since we're asking for extra off the top, we would end up most likely rebating anything back that ends up being in excess of what we anticipated the development to need up front. So it's not required, but that is something that we would take a look at, given that we're going back for additional credits on that front. So the historic tax credit equity ends up being about 50% of the equity for the deal, and then the federal LIHTC equity covers the rest of the gap, or the rest of the budget.
And then I would add, I think Mitch is going to get to this in the fiscal note discussion, but they are participating in the neighborhood revitalization area or plan, and the format of that is it's actually a rebate. They pay their taxes, they demonstrate they paid them, and then the incremental increase that's a result of the project gets rebated back to them. And so that plan is not structured in a direct cost reimbursement scenario as much as it's an incentive to incentivize investment in particular geographic areas of the community. This particular project, the plan was amended to provide for projects of exceptional community significance is the way that we worded it. So it gets an extended, the projects that meet that criteria get an extended term of 15 years and get a rebate of 95%, but it's not cost oriented directly.
Okay, thank you.
I noticed on the first phase, a third of the units were market rate. This one is 100% income qualified. Just out of curiosity, how have your occupancies been on the first phase between the two? Has there been any, or they?
Yeah, occupancy has been great. On the first phase, we have, as Mitch mentioned, we have a waiting list right now. I think typically our only vacancies that we really experience is turnover between units. But between the market rate and the income qualified side, we've had really good results. One thing that I don't think I've actually mentioned going through this is we're actually doing something a little bit different from phase one in what's called income averaging, which allows you to expand the income qualifications that we typically see in development. So on phase one, the income qualified units are restricted anywhere from 30 to 60% of area median income. With the second phase, we are fully affordable or fully income qualified, but the way that the state has structured the program, we're anywhere from 30 to 80% of area median income in terms of our qualifications. So it spans the gamut a little bit more and opens up a wider band of incomes, but it is still kind of fully income qualified to reach the maximum amount of people.
Great. Thank you. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the public?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, obviously, we wouldn't be here if we didn't vote to approve and recommend this project. The board did make that recommendation, and that's why we're here today. And as the city manager said, it was next step on the item here to talk about the NRA status of the facility and the abatement till it's not abatement, I have to make sure I say it correctly, that they'll be able to get that over the 15-year period at 95%. So those are the last two items. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, or Dean? Is Dean still
Yeah,
there?
I do have one item of note. I was contacted by a citizen asking about the possibility of making it a requirement to buy local. I think their thinking was that as you give away the exemption, you might have the ability to put a condition on that. As you know, we don't do local preference elsewhere, and there are some complexities with the state expecting that vendors from our community that would then be subject to percentage accounting as they bid in other communities. So it's not quite as easy as it sounds, but I did want to relay that had that inquiry.
Okay. So, staff recommendations, options for the commissioners' consideration. Number one would be approve resolution 238120. Number two would be approve resolution 238120 with amendments as the commission deems appropriate. The third item would be postpone consideration of this resolution to a specified date and time, provide staff direction regarding additional information or amendments the City Commission would like to request for their further consideration. Or number four, vote to deny resolution number 2381, resulting in the issuance of the IRBs not being authorized. Staff recommends option number one. And I'll answer any questions anybody might have.
Have any other questions? I have one quick question that has nothing to do with approving this. Before I forget, will you be doing the same lighting on the outside of the building you did? And I say that because at night, that's got to be the best looking, not only building in Salina, but maybe the state of Kansas and who knows for how far. So thanks. That's a great look on that building. So, okay. I will accept a motion.
I move we approve resolution number 238120.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 23-8120. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you very much, and good luck with your project. Look forward to seeing it. Okay, that will lead us to other business. Is there anything a commissioner would like to bring before the group?
I will commend city staff and contractors for getting everything together in Bill Burke Park. They played baseball up there this weekend, and it was a beautiful weekend, and everyone had a good time, and it's coming together.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, that will lead us to Citizens Forum. This is an opportunity for someone to talk about kind of whatever they want. You have 3 minutes, and ask if anybody wants to come forward. Okay, looks like no comment. With that, I will accept a motion to adjourn, and I will remind everybody that we are taking a 10-minute recess, and we will be back here at 4:50, 4:50 for a continuation of our special meeting.
Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. See everybody back here in 10 minutes.